So this is the truth about truancy. So a definition of truant is under Education Code 48260, and this is how it reads. A student missing more than 30 minutes of instruction without an excuse 3 times during the school year must be classified as truant and reported to the proper school authority. The classification and referral helps emphasize the importance of school attendance, and it is intended, so people hear why they're doing this. It's intended to help minimize interference with instruction. Okay, so don't get alarmed when you hear the word truancy. It's not saying you're a bad parent. It's not saying that something horrible is going to happen to your children. It's just stating that they were either 30 minutes late to class or they had an unexcused absence. And this has to happen 3 times to be considered truant. Okay, so that's the definition of truant. Here's the definition of chronic truant. It's under Education Code 482636. And how this reads is any pupil subject to compulsory full-time education or compulsory continued education, which is a continuation school instead of a regular school. Who is absent from school without valid excuse for 10% or more of a school days in 1 year from the date of enrollment to the current date is deemed chronic truant. All right. So first of all, we did some research, and it seems like our average day is 180 days in California for school days. So that would mean a chronic truant to hit the 10% mark would be approximately 18 days. So before your kid is marked chronic truant, they have to miss 18 days of either being absent, unexcused, or they have to be tardy 18 days, or a combination of both. But here's something else that's real important. Part of this, when they consider kids chronic absentees, they normally consider that there are other issues that fall along with that. So we're going to get into this when we go further along. So again, Education Code 48260 is truant code, 3 days absent, unexcused, or 30 minutes late to class, or a combination of both, 3 days. And Education Code 48263.6 is the chronic truant, 10%, approximately 18 days. That's considered chronic truant. Now let's find out what happens if either one of these occur. Okay, well, first of all, let's just talk about why does our school want our children in class? Okay, there's several reasons. The first one, I would hope, is to educate them, which as parents, that's what we want to do as well. But parents, let's be real. It's also a big part of indoctrination. We can tell this by just seeing these laws that have been passed down within our school systems. We see our health ed framework, the sexuality and blatant disrespect for family values within this. It's far-reaching in so many ways, which is interesting because the state actually calls it far-reaching as well. So what we're protesting is the indoctrination. We're not protesting education at all. Okay, so let's say your child is truant or chronic truant. There's a state mandate which they have to abide by. So under Education Code 48260.5, you have to receive a first notification. It's called a first notification mandate. So that's step 1. So whether your child is truant or chronic truant, this first step has to occur before anything else. And let's see what it says. It says, in addition to the reporting requirement, the law states that a school district must notify the parent or guardian of the truant by the most cost-effective method possible. And that notification must include specific information related to the student's unexcused absences. So parents, if they think your child is truant, or they think your child is chronic truant, which this won't really happen till down the road here, you have to be notified. So by law, you will be notified. It doesn't matter what the district thinks. This is a state mandate. So you'll be notified. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. In this, it also says that a parent or guardian has the right to meet with appropriate school personnel to discuss solutions for the pupil's truancy. So you're going to have the opportunity to go in and sit down and say, you know what, they participated in a sit out, or we went on a family vacation, or they were sick and I forgot to turn in the note. Whatever your reason is for these one or all three of the days that they're considered truant, you have an opportunity to voice that. So nothing's going to happen. Nothing happens to the child. It's just going to be a notification of the parent to just make sure that you're aware of these things. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then it goes to step 2. Every district has a district policy. And keep in mind, all of this information that I have, I acquired from the State Board of Education. I reached out to them and I spoke with a gentleman who basically is very familiar with this. He's in charge of part of it. And these were not things that I made up or my assumptions. These are actually, you can find them on the website as well. Okay, so under the district policy, every district has a different policy as to how many days you can have unexcused absences within their school or within their district. And so I can't give you a policy number because every district has different policy numbers. State mandates are the same across the board. District policies, those policy numbers differ depending on the district. So, for instance, one district that we're aware of, and after reaching out to the attendance office, they had 14 days. So this would mean you had 3 state mandated days and additional 11 that the district gave you, which totaled the 14 days. So although they might reach out to you in 3 days, they're not going to really do anything. They're not really going to consider yourself chronic or your child a chronic truant until they've met those district days. So every district is different. So reach out to your district to find out. You can also reach out to your school because sometimes the district has a policy which passes on to each school within the district having their own policy. So reach out to them. So that's step 2. Okay, from step 2, we go into step 3, which is called a habitual truant mandate. So this is only if they consider your child to be a habitual truant mandate. So under Education Code 48262, we're going to see what this says. It says a law further requires that after a student has been reported as a truant 3 or more times in one school year, after an appropriate school employee has made continuous efforts to hold at least one meeting with the parent and the student is deemed a habitual truant. Here's something else. Here's this. The intent is to provide solutions for the student who failed to respond to the normal avenues of school intervention. So again, parents, I know it goes from step 1, 2, 3, and they all sound pretty similar, but all of these things have to occur. There's actually 5 steps, and even more than 5, that have to happen before anything dire actually even happens. So you have nothing to worry about. As long as your child is not one of those kids who doesn't go to school, who's missing school, you're taking to school, they're walking out of class. If that's not your child, you really don't have a whole lot to worry about. And Pacific Justice Institute has put something out there basically saying that if we have any issues, reach out to them. They will stand up for our parental rights. So just be assured that there are many firms out there that will uphold our parental rights if we reach out to them, okay? So, all right. So we've gone through step 1, gone through step 2, we've gone to step 3. I want to point something else out, which is interesting. So under Education Code 48261, it says any pupil who has once been reported as a truant and who is again absent from school without valid excuse 1 or more days or tardy on 1 or more days shall be reported as a truant to the attendance supervisor or the superintendent of the district. Now, this isn't even part of the steps. So this has to happen as well. So between step 1, when you've been absent or tardy 3 times, and then you go into step 2, where you have the district policy, This actually kind of fits between step 2 and step 3 before you ever become a habitual truant mandate. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. If you're getting threatening letters or you're getting phone calls or emails or what have you, or people are telling you you're going to get in trouble, your kid is going to be suspended or expelled, or they're not going to be able to make up their work, it's just not true. Parents, don't fall for the lies. Don't fall for the scare tactics. It's not true. You know your child. If your child has an attendance problem, then I don't think the sit out is something you should be worried about. However, if they don't have attendance problem, you still don't have to worry about the sit out. Participate in it. All right. So step 4, under Education Code 482635. This is when interventions kick in, and it's mandated by the state that they provide some interventions for you. So it says when a student is a habitual truant. So remember, you've gone through step 1, step 2, that process between 2 and 3, you've gone to 3, now we're on to 4. When a student is a habitual truant or an irregular in attendance at school or habitually insubordinate or disorderly during school, the student, now here's the key word, parents, may be referred to School Attendance Review Board, which is SARB, S-A-R-B, School Attendance Review Board. That's what SARB stands for. Okay, so keep in mind, now we've moved down all the way to step 4. These are all the processes that have to happen. And so here's what it says actually from the school attendance improvement strategies that they post. It's on their online. I'm not making any of this up. It says when the normal avenues of intervention for habitual truants, chronic absentees, or habitually disruptive pupils are exhausted. So parents, they have to exhaust all these avenues before anything really happens. So when they're exhausted at the school site, then they'll refer the case to the School Attendance Review Board, which is SARB, what I had said, or a district attorney or probation officer or mediation program. So yes, they can report it to a district attorney or probation officer. Remember, we're all the way down at step 4 now. And keep in mind, when we're calling someone a habitual truant in here, they're also throwing in here insubordinate or disorderly during school. So this is not the child who's missing a lot of school. Or maybe they are, but this has some behavior issues as well. So they just assume if you're a chronic truant, well, then there's some other things going on there as well. So again, don't get scared by this word. Remember, intervention has to occur first. So let's say they've exhausted step 1, step 2, between 2 and 3 are step 3, 4. Now we go on to 5. Okay. Once they get to that point, then they go to step 5, which is referral to School Attendance Board, which is the SARB that I mentioned. Well, 5 and 4 sound pretty darn similar, but it just goes to show you that they're going to try to work with you, the student and parent, as much as possible to try to figure out what they can do to have that child in class because they get paid. They're getting paid to have that child in class. And when that child's not there, they don't get money. So let's just look at it this way. Money talks, which is why you need to participate in our sit out. Because when we show them that if they teach this junk in our schools, they're not going to get money for our child, they're going to stop and listen. Okay? If someone took your paycheck, you would stop and listen. So we're going to take their paycheck. And I'm not talking about the teachers, I'm talking about the school districts. Okay, so we go to step 5, referral to School Attendance Board. We're all the way at step 5 before anything's going to really happen. Here's what's interesting. This is per the California Department of Ed from the department SARB, the State Attendance Review Board told me this. The burden falls on the school district to provide documentation that the interventions were undertaken prior to getting to this point. Also, SARB will also, after this, will still try to resolve attendance prior to any action being taken. So parents, Again, they're going to work with you, okay? They're not going to throw the book at you. Your child's not going to be expelled. They don't make any money that way. And it also affects the school rating, which we're going to get into, which is so important. All right. So under Education Code 48263, it says if a minor pupil in a school district of a county is a habitual truant or a chronic absentee, as defined under Section 60901, or is habitually insubordinate or disorderly. Remember, those are keywords we use. When they think of someone being chronic truant, they assume, or most likely, they're the children who are insubordinate and disorderly, okay? If your child's not insubordinate and disorderly at school, you probably aren't going to have this issue, okay? So even in this case, it says a pupil, again, crazy thing, keyword. Parents, I don't know if you can see it, may, not shall, may be referred to school attendance review board or probation department, just like we talked about. And right here it says the school district supervisor of attendance or any other persons of governing board. So basically whoever's going to make these allegations, they have to, and it doesn't say may. Here we go into the word shall provide documentation of the interventions undertaken at the school to the pupil, the pupil's parents and guardians, and the school attendance review board. So parents, again, you just saw that, we've gone through 5 steps, and that's not all of them. Those were just the important ones that I documented to give you education codes. Also, if you have any questions, and this is I'm not going to say the gentleman's name, last time I said his name, but you can call and speak to someone yourself, area code 916-323-1028. And you can find out on your own what I'm telling you, the education codes that I'm quoting. These are all authentic. I'm not making any of them up. So again, you've gotten through 5 steps. We're having an issue. Your child's not going to school. What's going to happen to you? Let's talk about what's going to happen to you. Number 1, penalties to students. Education code 48264.5. We've gone through all of that. We have a problem. This is a child with an issue. Okay, what's going to happen? The first time it says a truancy report is required. The pupil may be personally given a written warning. They're going to get a written warning. The second time, what's going to happen? Within the same school year, the pupil may be assigned by a school to an after-hour school or weekend study program located within the same county of the pupil's school. Okay. What's going to happen the third time? So the third time, they're going to be required. It sounds a lot like the third time. The third time, a truancy report is required within the same school year. The pupil shall be classified as a habitual truant. So isn't that interesting? We've gone through all of those steps, and now they're classified as a habitual truant when it seemed like they were classified as habitual truant a while back, but they really weren't. So you see all that has to happen before they're really classified that way. And then after they're classified, the fourth time of a truancy is required to report within the same school year. The pupil shall be within a judicial juvenile court, which may pass a judgment on them. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to get in trouble. There's going to be a juvenile thing that they're going to say they have to go to a continuation school or something. So that's step 4. And that's after your child is basically, it's been proven that they're a habitual truant. Okay, so that's a long ways to go. What's going to happen to the parent? Okay, Education Code 48293 says, upon the first conviction, so remember, this is after things have been proven. This isn't your child's been truant. I'm just going to tell you some penalties now. The first time of a conviction, this means that's proven, they've contacted you, they've exhausted all possibilities, you refuse to work with them, you can't get your child in class, there's problem after problem after problem. Maybe they're disruptive, maybe, whatever, they're getting in fights, they're having issues. The first time you're going to pay $100. The second time you're going to pay $250. The third time you're going to pay $500. And the fourth and fifth time you're going to be in trouble. So I'm not even going to touch that one. But again, that's a problem child. That's not someone sitting at a sit out. Now let's go to the criminal complaints against parents. Okay. We don't ever want to get to these. And parents, sitting at a sit out, you're not going to get to these. So again, don't worry, but I'm going to give you the education code. 48291. If it appears upon investigation, so again, let's talk about the investigation. This has to be proven. An investigation happened. They proved, they've tried to contact you, they've had conferences, they've emailed you, they've sent letters, they've done everything they can, and basically you refuse to have your child in school. And I don't mean a parent who's tried to have their child in school, but the child won't go anyways because the parent's got to actually go to work and pay for things and so on and so forth. But I mean a parent who's just not being competent in having their child in a class. That's when this comes into play. And it says, so upon the investigation that a parent or guardian or other persons having control or change of any child has violated any of the provisions in the chapter, the Secretary of the Board of Education, except as provided in section 48291, or a clerk of the board, basically you're going to get in trouble. Okay, so that's when stuff's going to happen. So parents, we've gone through so many steps before really anything is going to happen to you. Please understand, they want your child in class. It's a state mandate for, education codes, for truant codes, and there's a reason behind it. It's way back in the day, people were absent, truancy, and they'd get to their senior year and nothing was done about it, and they had no credits to graduate. Or the dropout rate was crazy. So this is a way for them to keep kids in school, a way for them to educate kids, a way for them to keep money in our public school system. Okay, I mean, there's so many different reasons, but those are just to name a few. Now, here's what I find interesting, and I'm going to reach down here to grab something. I don't know if any of the parents out there are familiar with our California Schools dashboard. So I wasn't familiar with it until the gentleman at SARB explained it to me, because I asked him, so why is it so important for our kids to be in school? I mean, obviously, I know to educate them. I want my child to be educated. But why are they making such a big deal? Why are they writing letters? Why are they threatening? Why are they trying to make it scare parents? And I asked him for his personal opinion. I said, for a school to reach out and threaten a parent or to make them feel like their child's going to be expelled or suspended, or they're going to have a knock at the door from the police or be arrested, especially somebody who their first language isn't English and there might be a communication breakdown to begin with the school. Why would they be doing that? And he said they're bullying him, and it's just not okay. And of course, I couldn't use any specific names, but basically, parents, if you're getting treated like this, they're bullying you, they're lying to you, they think that they can scare you. So I'm telling you right now, don't fall for their lies, for their scare tactics, because you're an adult and these are your children and you are there to protect them. It's not for the school to make the decisions for you. It's for you to make the decisions for your child, okay? So let's talk about the California State or the California School Dashboard. Real quick, I just want to tell you, so when you go on there, and you can go on and do schooldashboard.org, and you can see this for yourself. But I'm going to actually click on this, and I'm going to turn my thing around so you can see this if you want. Maybe not. Maybe I won't be able to do that. Anyway, so they have what they call California Accountability Model. And I want to tell you what it says. It says, I'm going to read this right for you. It says, state measure includes chronic absentee, graduation rate, suspension rate, and academic. And under academic, it has in brackets, it says, which includes performance in English language arts, literacy, and mathematics. I wonder, why is absentee the first thing listed on how they measure schools? So this is a site for parents and school districts and states to measure a school for funding to also see where they're lacking and also where they're excelling. And basically what I was told is this is a big reason why they care so much about the absentee rate, because this helps push money that they get, and it also this is where people look to see what school my kid's going to go to, which again, the more students, the more money. So you see where I'm going with this. Okay, so I hope you have some clarity on the truancy laws and how they would apply to you and your family. If you get a phone call because your child has been truant 3 times, it's just a state mandate. It's just by law they have to reach out to you. Don't be fearful. Don't be scared. If you know your child isn't one of those children that has issues with truancy, you really have nothing to worry about, okay? But let's talk about something and why it's so important that we stand up and fight for our children, and what exactly this sit out is all about. I want to answer some questions if you have any. Like I said before, the California Department of Education revised their health education framework, and they're putting out to a lot of people that this is not a law, that it's a guideline. And that's true. It's not a law, it's a guideline, the framework. However, I want you to understand why this is such a big deal. Here's what happens. What happens is, although the framework is a guideline, we have publishers that, of course, I mean, they're in the market to make money. The only way they can make money is if they publish books. So how do they publish these books? They publish them from our framework. So they take the framework that our state adopts, which our state adopted on May 8th, this new health ed framework. They take that framework and publishers go out and start publishing books. Then what happens is our state then tells districts, these are the state approved publishers for the curriculum in which you can choose from. So now what's happened is these publishers, well, Pearson, McGaw, several others, I'm just going to use those names because those are familiar to me off the top of my head. They publish their curriculum based off of the framework. So basically they're taking the framework and they're writing the curriculum, okay? But yet our state is saying these are just guidelines. Well, I think they turn into something more than guidelines if publishers are publishing their material, making curriculum out of it. And then where does these books go? They go to our districts. And then our districts, what they do is they bring in the publishers and they go through and they pick which books they're going to use in their district. Now our school district has books. And now this guideline is in curriculum that our state gets for free, and they get incentives to use it, okay? So for the schools who say, oh, we're not getting any new curriculum, we don't have money, they don't need money. They get it for free. Go on to the websites on the state or call the California Department of Ed and they will tell you they are free, and they get incentives to get it. So they actually, not only do they get the material free, they actually get a little extra if they use it. So they get this material, they bring it to their classroom, and now this framework that's not mandatory, that's just a guideline, is now in curriculum that your children are learning and being taught out of. Okay, so yes, framework is framework. It's not mandated by law, but it's made into curriculum that's brought in the classroom that's taught to your child. Your teachers don't say, oh wait, you know what? These books aren't mandated. None of the books in our classroom are mandated. The books in our classroom are from framework that are guidelines. The books are curriculum in which was written from guidelined material. Okay. To kind of compare it, I don't know if anyone's familiar with SB 48, this FAIR Act that nobody had anything to worry about because it was just passed a law that basically was a non-discrimination. The law was non-discrimination. However, the adopting new material is not law. As long as your material doesn't discriminate, you can use your old material. But hey, what's happening in your school districts? Your school districts are shopping or already have new material, and what do your districts tell you? It's law, there's nothing we can do about it. Not true. They are choosing to use the new material that was written from guideline framework, and now it's in their schools. I think these mirror each other, people. These are scary. They are teaching masturbation. They are teaching so much stuff. They are teaching to use gender-neutral pronouns. They are teaching to challenge parents' values. They are requiring things from teachers within the schools. These are not things that we want or need in our classrooms. This health framework that will be made into published material, into curricula, that is supposedly just a guideline, is from TK, actually even before TK, all the way through 12th grade. Now, you probably have seen or heard that the state says they removed some controversial books. And in fact, they removed, 2 or 3? But I want to ask you a question. Don't you think those books within the framework were just a resource, added material, as we would say, for material they were already teaching within the framework? They didn't change any of the framework. I want to tell you something, one thing they did change in the framework that I find really horrific. And this came straight from Planned Parenthood. And I'm just going to tell you this one thing, and I can show you it. So within the framework, originally it said that if a student asked about masturbation, and this isn't high school, by the way, this is lower grade levels. If a student brought up masturbation, that a teacher should be able to explain it and teach on it. So Planned Parenthood said, no, that's not good enough for me. So I'm going to read exactly what they wrote, and I'm going to show you how it was recommended. So it says, the language around masturbation labeled it as non-physically harmful. That seems unnecessarily negative. Instead, it is recommended to say masturbation is safe. Not only that, masturbation should be included in the curricula to be addressed in a straightforward manner instead of waiting for the possibility of masturbation being brought up by a student. And parents, I want you to see this word right here, and I hope I'm getting it close enough, and I hope it's legible. Our State Board of Education says recommended. You know what that means? That's going to be in the framework. So the State Board of Education is saying that us parents that went down there, that spent our own money because we work, we have families, we're not a paid organization, okay? We're parents. We have nothing to gain. We're not trying to cause problems. We're not trying to cause a riot. We don't hate anybody. We care about our kids, and we care about our friends' kids, and we care about our neighbors' kids, and we care about kids, okay? And we care about what's being taught in school. And this stuff should not be taught in school. And for them to say we only had a problem with the books is a downright lie. And the board members that published that crud, I'm telling you right now, and I'm calling her out, she is a liar. She shouldn't hold that position. She doesn't deserve to hold that position, and she should be booted to the curb because she's a liar. I'm telling you right now, myself, and there were thousands of others. You know, when they talk about we only had problems with the books, that's a downright lie. We had 2 opportunities to make public comment. Here's a 58-page comments that I wrote, just me, 58 pages. They gave us specific guidelines in order for a public template that I had to do. I had to write the chapter, I had to write the line number, I had to write why, what came out, what put in, what my title was, who I was, this whole thing, 58 pages filled for all these chapters I did work for. And they're trying to say I had no problem except for the books. I didn't mention one book in my public comment. And you know what? I don't think many others did either. The books added pictures to what they were teaching. So yes, we had problems with the books because they gave us 8x10 glossies of what they were teaching in this framework. Stand up, sit out. This stuff shouldn't be taught in our schools.